welcome everyone. My name is Michelle. If we've never met before, if it's your first cooking class, welcome. If you've been with us for a few years, welcome back. I am joined by our president and founder, Sue Weldon. Happy to have her with me today. So at some point, I'll have a little bit of a stopping point when I will switch out ingredients. So I will give Sue the opportunity to do a little chit-chatting of course, the wonderful things she does with Unite for Her and any upcoming events. We are rolling into our fundraising season, which we are very excited about. So I know Sue will share some of those details. If you have never joined our classes before, we always start with a food for thought moment. And our food for thought moments are brought to you by our generous partners from Merck. So what we do is we pick an ingredient from one of our recipes and we highlight it. On our website, in our nutrition hub, we have all of the food for thought moments that we have done thus far. And Sue, we have so many now. I'm now having trouble finding an ingredient that we have not done yet.
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty extensive library. So please check it out. We have separate videos for each one. So today I will be featuring Freekeh. So it's Freekeh, but the end is ka. So Freekeh. Freekeh is a whole grain. So it is a wheat. It's a type of wheat. It is a cracked green wheat, actually, and it is harvested early. So the seeds are still green and they're harvested early because it has a little bit of texture. They're softer. And when we think of any of our whole grains, we think of carbohydrates, right? Well, if our grains are whole, they still have the outer layer intact, obviously, and that is where all of the protein is, okay? So if you think about white bread, white rice, white pasta, the outer layer has been removed, so the protein, and you're left with that starchy and endosperm, okay? So there might be a trace of protein. So don't be afraid to have carbohydrates, especially the whole grain varieties. Freekeh in particular has an earthy, nutty flavor, almost like a cross between rice and barley. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition. Again, because there is protein, just 1/4 cup of Freekeh has 5 grams of protein, which is a lot, right, for a grain. So if you're having 1/3 of a cup or a 1/2 a cup, you're just going up from there. Now, 1/4 of a cup also includes 4.5 grams of fiber. So as we know, we're always talking about fiber, good for our digestive health, our immune system. So again, if you're having more than 1/4 of a cup, you just go up from there with the fiber. Now, one of the minerals that we really don't talk about that much is manganese. And it is 57% of your daily value, again, for that 1/4 of a cup. Manganese, even though you really don't hear about it that much, is good for supporting our connective tissue, bone health, helps absorb calcium, helps with the metabolism of fat and carbohydrates, brain health, nerve health, blood sugar levels. So all of the good things, right? So that's the nutrition with Freekeh. Let's talk about what do I do with it. So when you purchase it, you can find it in the grain section. Some of the stores I had trouble finding it, so I purchase it off of Amazon. You will typically see cracked Freekeh, and that is so the texture is a little bit softer and it cooks a little bit quicker. You can have this as a grain for breakfast. So when you think of all the different types of grains, they're actually referred to as cereals. Last year, I did a chocolate quinoa breakfast bowl. It was delicious. Anytime I can add chocolate to something, but The chocolate was really an unsweetened cocoa powder. So you could use the freekeh instead of the quinoa. Some other things you can do with this, make it a side dish, add some greens, which I will be doing today, add some beans or any type of protein. It will all work well. If you are cooking it, I didn't do it today because I'll be jazzing it up with some herbs and spices, but you can cook it in a vegetable broth as well. So it'll give it a little bit more flavor. So there you have it, our food for thought moment brought to you by our partners at Merck. Again, thank you, Sue, for posting all the information. Oh, more information on Freekeh. That's great. Appreciate that. And all of our food for thought moments, it looks like you attached that link as well.
Yeah,
So,
I never knew about this grain. So I am once again learning something new. I love the fiber. Now you said manganese and not to be confused with magnesium. So could you tell me the difference? Because Michele, I don't know. Is it one like a micro macro version? I don't know
so
the difference.
that's good that you brought that up. So manganese is a micronutrient. Magnesium is part of the electrolyte family. So you will see magnesium in our leafy greens, our beans. So a lot of the plant proteins, beans, nuts, and seeds. So they are very different. And I'm glad you brought that up about the magnesium. So my theme is Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. When the dietitians were in school, we learned a lot about disease states, community nutrition, food science, biology. We never talked about diets. And we know there's all these different diets out there, so many diets. But the two diets that we heard most about, Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. DASH diet stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So Erin and I are tag teaming it this session. So the July-August session, her recipes will be for the DASH diet, and I am doing Mediterranean. Now, their similarities are plant-based foods. So fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, herbs and spices, and lean proteins, poultry, fish. So those are the similarities. There are differences. The DASH diet talks a lot about low sodium, makes sense for hypertension, right? And it was created by the National Institute of Health. So the DASH diet, you're going to see more structure, like how many servings per day of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, whereas the Mediterranean diet is more like this is what's included. So you can't go wrong with either one. Mediterranean really doesn't talk about sodium. However, we all know we should be mindful of our sodium levels. So where the magnesium comes in, the DASH diet also focuses on magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Those three are very important for our heart health. They're electrolytes. We need electrolytes to manage our blood pressure. Okay, so that's what the DASH diet focuses on. Now, again, either one is fine. All roads lead to that plant-forward diet, right? There's so much research and so many studies on how the plant-forward diets are so beneficial to our bodies. So, Sue, I hope I answered your question. Are you still there?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry. I
Okay.
just have a house. I have a house full, so I was trying to keep you on mute.
No
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
No problem.
And I love it. Thank you so much. I'm always learning from you, Michele, and I appreciate you. All right.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So when we think of Mediterranean diets, we think of, or excuse me, Mediterranean countries. We think of Greece, Spain, Italy, Morocco. I went the other way. I thought, let's do Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. So you have a whole other set of countries. My geography is horrible, so please don't mind if I'm using notes. So Eastern Mediterranean countries include Egypt, Syria, Libya, Lebanon, Israel, Turkey, and Cyprus. So there are a lot of great Mediterranean restaurants out there that focus on Mediterranean cuisine. So let's get started. My first recipe is called Lebanese Freekeh with chicken. You can make this plant-based. You don't need to add chicken. You can add tofu, leave tofu out and do beans, do some nuts. So I am using chicken today and I'm going to get started. So I have a saucepan here. It is heating up on medium heat and I'm going to chop up my onion. So obviously we start with a whole onion and here is the root. Looks like, hair right there, like a Muppet, right? And then here is the top. So if you want to dice an onion, slice it long ways, and you cut off the top. And it's easy to peel off the skin that way. And you are not going to cut the root off because that's going to help stabilize your onion as you chop it. Okay, so what I do is I take my knife and very carefully just make some slices all the way down. You don't have to go all the way up to the top. And you just keep moving all the way around. Be careful as you get closer to your hands, of course. All right, so now it is intact. So when I start dicing it, it's not sliding all over the place. You can put a slice right here or slice right in the center. I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is start slicing it like this, and you have beautiful diced onion. I'm not going to use all of this. I'm actually saving it for the last recipe, which is the Israeli salad. So here we go. I'm going to put some of this aside. I'm going to toss some oil in here. Now, as with any grain, Freekeh really grows. It really grows. So I actually used a cup instead of 2 cups, and that's okay. I did 2 cups, and it took a lot of time to get through. So I will just do 1 cup today.
Michele, could I ask you, Freekeh, you know how certain grains are really heart healthy or good for diabetes? Would this be one that was, good for a diet that needs to watch for diabetes, knowing you have to take out white rice and white pasta, right?
Yes, because of the fiber. So if you have a carb count for a quarter of a cup for the Freekeh, if you have a carb count of 20, and there is those almost 5 grams of fiber, you can subtract that. So really, you're just looking at 15 grams of carbohydrates. So if you are counting your carbs per meal, if you've been instructed to do that, of course, by a physician or a dietitian, then that's what you can do. You do not have to cut out carbs entirely. Our bodies need that for energy.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to let those cook down a little bit. Faye, I hope you are doing well. And I saw Robin joined. Robin, I know I sent you recipes. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just want to make sure I'm not moving too quickly.
Nope, you're doing great. This is wonderful.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to let these onions cook down a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to add my greens. So my husband is very excited that I just picked these from his garden this morning. So I have some red chard, I have some yellow chard, I have some baby kale, which is nice and delicate. The curly leaf kale is not as tender as I'd like it to be, so I'm excited to use this. Going to cut out the stem, and Sue is very big on food waste. So, Sue, I don't know if I told you this, but my husband, Antonio, is using the composter. So he loves it.
Good. That's good. My company just asked me today because they were here when we had the food composter. So I would love to know how that's all working and tell Antonio I am very jealous of his garden. That's amazing.
He loves it. He loves it. And if you don't have a composter, you can freeze the stems and then make yourself a vegetable soup. So what I've been doing is I roll my greens and then I cut it into little strips. So they're a little bit easier to eat. You don't have to do this. You can chop it, you can tear it. There we go. All right. The recipe says 2 cups. Have at it. You don't have to follow that. You can use spinach, whatever greens that you prefer. Okay. So the onions are nice and translucent. I'm going to add the freekeh. It's a fun word to say.
I feel like we can substitute it for that 4-letter word. Oh, Freekeh.
Oh my gosh, you say that in the office.
I'm going to start saying that in the office now. Man, that Freekeh.
Gosh. All right, some salt and pepper. All right, I still have it on medium. I'm going to cook that down a little bit. I also have some parsley here. I had to buy it at the store. My husband didn't grow enough of it, but I tell him I got it from his herb garden. Does it make sense?
Hey, Michele, are you adding this to the recipe for the Lebanese dish with the chicken?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are you adding your greens to the Lebanese dish with the chicken?
I am adding it to the freekeh. Once the freekeh cooks down, I'm going to add the greens to it. And then for the parsley, I could add some parsley as well, but I'm going to use this as a garnish at the end. Are you not seeing the greens?
Because that wasn't in the recipe at all. So that's why I was asking.
Really?
Yeah, there was nothing about greens other than just garnishing it with a little bit of parsley.
Huh.
I think that's where you have your parsley, but she's adding extra in the freekeh. Is that what you're doing, Michele?
Yeah, so Faye,
Okay.
you don't see the greens. I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll check out that recipe and I'll edit that before the links go out to everyone. Thank you.
No problem.
You have the 2 cups of choice of kale, spinach, chard. You have that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, you have that in there. I think she's talking about the parsley part because that's are you adding the parsley with the 2 cups and that together makes the 2 cups, Michele?
No, you can, but I'm using it as a garnish at the end.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so now I'm adding my water. And I'll bring it to a boil so it can soften. Now, from soaking it, it's already broken down a little bit more. So I really don't have to cook it that much. Going to bring it to a boil and then I will let it simmer until it gets soft. So that will be on there for a little bit. The next step is I will be prepping the chicken, okay? So when we talk about raw chicken, we do have to be mindful of food safety, right? So using different cutting boards, using different kitchen shears, using different types of knives, keeping that separate from your plant-based foods. You can even have cutting boards that are specific to meats, cutting boards that are specific to our plant foods. All right, so let me grab the chicken. These chicken breasts were pretty thick. So I used my meat tenderizer and I pounded them for a little bit so they are nice and thin.
Michelle, I love how you put your trash bag right there on the handle for easy access during cooking. I always envy people who have like a pull-out trash can right under their butcher block or things like that. And I thought, oh, that's such a good addition. And here you were able to do a workaround just by adding that bag right on your knob.
Yes, and I know Rachel Ray sells bowls for trash, and I thought, why would you buy a bowl? You can have your own bowl or a plastic trash bag. So,
So she
Well,
can
I
make more money.
correct. It probably has her name on it, RR.
exactly. So, all right. So for the chicken, we are going to season this. And I am seasoning it with 7 spice. You do not have to go to the store and purchase 7 spice. I made this on my own with the spices that I have in my pantry. So once again, because I will not remember the 7 spices, this is boiling, so I'm just going to turn it down to a simmer. It includes allspice, coriander, cinnamon, black pepper, ground cloves, cumin, and nutmeg. If you don't have all of these, you don't have to run out. If you're missing coriander or cumin, you can just use some of them. You can use all cinnamon. So it does not matter, but it's has a really great aroma. We're always talking about getting in those extra nuggets of nutrition. And this is a great way to do it using your herbs and spices. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is season it with salt and pepper. And sprinkle on the 7 spice. Now, this is why they call it a rub. I like to rub it in. So when you are cooking it in the pan, it helps it get that nice brown outer coat. Flip it over. I'm going to wash my hands because I don't want to touch my salt and pepper. And good practices are to wash your hands for 20 seconds, get your whole hand clean under your nails. So you know that your hands are thoroughly clean. We don't want to increase your risk of salmonella. That is no fun.
And Michelle, when you're preparing your chicken, when you take it out of the package, do you actually wash your chicken first before you put it down? Okay,
I don't.
Some people that did, I never did. And then I'm like, oh gosh, have I been missing this step all my life that I never washed my chicken first?
So it is advised, that used to be the way, and I think my mom still does. It's never been, or it's not advised anymore because you run the risk of the raw chicken splattering all around. And that's what they always say for turkey also, when you have your Thanksgiving turkey. I mean, you might be thinking, well, I could just, sanitize it, but that's the recommendation, is to not wash your chicken. You can pat it dry, which I did before I put it in the refrigerator. Now, if you are using chicken, we need to be mindful that if you have leftovers, which I most likely will, only keep your chicken in the refrigerator for 3 days. If you choose to freeze it, you can keep it in there for 3 months before you need to discard it. For plant-based, you can keep your plant-based foods for 5 days in the refrigerator. Same thing, 3 months in the freezer.
Great. What about plant-based foods like, let's say you're roasting vegetables and you're cooking and you took those vegetables and you just had them out on your counter, right? Just resting and cooling. Is there a certain time that you shouldn't have like even plant-based food at room temperature?
Yes. So after 2 hours, any type of food will start to develop bacteria. Now, I mean, how many of us have actually had food out on the counter, especially in summer with barbecues, different types of salads with mayonnaise, they have been left outside. You really have to be careful. But anytime after 2 hours, so there's a danger zone 40, the temperature of 40 degrees and 140. If your food is in that danger zone, you really need to be mindful of how long that it is sitting out. So I know they have these really fun things. It's filled with ice, and then you can set your salads in and cover it if it's outside. So that's an option.
All right. Sounds like we can make something out of a Pyrex dish in ice and put it in there too, right? So it's
Absolutely. If you don't want to buy anything else, for sure. Okay. I am going to move on to the next recipe. Once the freekeh is done, I will go back to the recipe. So hopefully those who are cooking along are all set with the Lebanese freekeh with chicken. Faye, I hope you're good to move on to the next one. Sue, am I missing anyone?
No, you're doing great. We have a couple on camera, and then I think Faye is our only one cooking with us today.
Okay.
And then I am watching your chat for you. So you're doing great.
Excellent. All right. So Sue, I'm going to take a minute to switch out, clean up a little bit. How about you take over for a few minutes?
You got it. Yeah, thank you. All right. So it's always good to be able to join here. I don't get to do it often. You know, our staff has grown so much and we take turns. And if you come on our cooking demos, you get to meet a lot of our staff members who are the people behind Unite for Her. And, we're a busy team. So this year alone, just an FYI, we're going to be serving about 7,000 members across the nation. We have over 200 that are in our Spanish speaking only program that has really flourished under Catherine and Nina's direction. So we're very excited about that, being able to offer that fully in Spanish for that community as well. And we have all of our events starting to gear up again. For Unite for Her, our fiscal runs from July 1 to June 30th. So we're right in the beginning of our fiscal, and our team is gearing up for now our 5K and our chef and wine tasting event. So I should say chef and spirits non-alcoholic event, because we have really moved to a zero proof vendors all around that event, aligning with the health recommendations that we know are very important for our community. So our 5K, that's coming up in September. It is September the 28th. It is a Saturday. Let me make sure that date is correct. And then our chef and wine tasting event is actually November the 7th. So if you get on our website, and you'll be able to see all of the uniteforher.org/events, you'll be able to go to each and every one of them. And I always say that community events are so fun because they offer a virtual component. So even if you are I see that you're in New Jersey, or you're in Minnesota or Michigan or Florida, you can join us from anywhere. And especially the 5K, because it's like this virtual, we were all doing virtual events during the pandemic, but the 5K stuck, where people even in Texas and in LA and in Washington, DC, they would form little groups, communities, neighborhoods, and they'd walk, and they would form a team, and they would rally around a team name, and then unite for the community of Unite for Her, him and them, and form their team. And then we end up watching them, and they have goals. And, some people want to have a goal of funding a member, that all of our members get $2,000 worth of services. So it's super fun, and some don't. They just want to walk and run, and they just register to do that. So please know this is a fun one. It's easy. It's in your backyard. We would love for you to join us. We're expecting 3,000 to come out in the streets of Westchester this year, and then of course another 500 that are going to do it virtual with us. So that's that one, the 5K, and then the chef event that we have coming up. That one is in the Philadelphia area. That's at the Phoenixville Foundry. It is in person, although you could watch virtually the actual presentation. But that's a super fun one. So if you're around our area, that chef event is, about 25 chefs. We have about 5 different zero-proof alcohol offerings, from toast to aplos, to these really fun mocktails. And if you're following along with our virtual hangouts and even getting on our website, talk about a library of mocktails. That is super fun, like how to make an Aperol spritz with, no alcohol in there. And we as a team have been all about this, because who doesn't love that beautiful glass, the big square ice cube, the beautiful little, garnish that goes on there, and the flour on top, and it's just a thing, right? It feels social, and just because we choose not to have alcoholic drinks, why not have the fun still, right? So we have made up amazing non-alcoholic drinks. We have a huge library of those, and I would recommend, with summertime, super fun and engaging. I think, Michele, you just did one that was a coconut, lime, and really good non-alcoholic one that we can all just enjoy, that social part of being with friends and family, which, we all love. So know that Unite for Her, I put a couple things. Oh, Terry, you said the Earl Grey mocktail. That was me. It looked amazing, right? Like, I was a big whiskey sour girl. I love my whiskey sours. And I'm like, how am I gonna get that feeling with a mocktail? And I love this one. I love this one. So if you haven't gotten on our library, our videos, our food for thought, our nutrition, it's so fun and engaging. And it's all of your beautiful dietitians that are there hosting and giving you so much access to just really practical ways to enjoy food, to get your vitamins, your minerals, all of your really important nutrients in our food, plant-based forward diet that we always try and showcase, and really have a little fun with it as well. So library, it's in the chat. Go to our website under events. I'll put the 5K and the Harvest Chef and Wine Tasting event in there. And then, of course, we have all of our Ask the Expert speaker series, virtual hangouts, that is filled with a host of incredible information topics that are front of mind. And we want to hear from you too. So know that if you're on here, Erin and I are the ones that are making that calendar. Put it in the chat. Hey, Sue, could you do a topic on X, right? We just did young children and how to talk to them when they're diagnosed, their parent is diagnosed. And it was a really meaningful one, especially for me. My children were very young when I was diagnosed. So to remember what that felt like all those years ago, it brought back some feelings of learning, for sure. And also just doing the best you can with the knowledge that you have at the time. So that is why we're here, to give you the knowledge so you can do the best you can with the knowledge that you have. And Michele's leading you all the way through these incredible recipes. So Michele, I hope that got you ready to go. And thank you for allowing me to share a little bit more about Unite for Her.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sue. And every Friday, and sorry, Sue, if you mentioned this, every Friday we're featuring a new mocktail. So for the summer, so it will go all the way through August, and they will also be up, of course, we keep talking about this fantastic library. They will be there, but they're a lot of fun and refreshing. Each of the dietitians took two. And Sue, did you say you did one also? That Earl Grey one, that was your creation?
That was not my creation. I just loved it. I just loved it. I just loved it. So I can take that challenge. I will take that challenge for the RD team and make my own little mocktail and see what I can come up. Yeah. But yeah, they're super fun. And can you tell me, Michele, are the mocktails living on our library as well?
My understanding was once they are featured that they would go up on the library, or I'm not sure if Rachel will just put them all on at the end. I'm not completely sure. about
Yeah,
that.
they're on there. We have a lavender Earl Grey mule, and we have the pineapple and coconut margarita.
Yes.
So, yep, I am
Yes.
going to put the link in the chat. And yeah, you guys are leaving with a lot of fun recipes today.
That just reminded me. So if you go the drop down at the top, it'll say nutrition. It takes us to our hub, and then there's a button that says recipes. If you click on that, then all of these recipes will be there, which you'll get the links, and then the mocktail recipes. Now I remember seeing it. So,
And I just took you there with a link that's right there in the chat. So that way you'll be able to get to it a little quicker as well.
perfect. Okay. So I'm moving on to the baked falafel with garlic tahini sauce. Falafel is traditionally fried. So we are going to bake this just as good. This is a really great recipe. Now, I am using chickpeas that were dried. For falafel, you cannot use canned beans because it's too mushy, right? They're already very soft. So Faye and I talked a couple minutes, couple minutes, just about the beans and soaking them. I admittedly struggle with soaking my beans because I feel like I could soak them for 4 days and they would still be too firm. But last year I did a refried bean recipe, and it shows you how to cook beans from scratch where you don't even have to soak them overnight. But the directions are in the recipe. What I did was I soaked them overnight and then I finished them off in a saucepan today. Anywhere from 1 to 2 hours, but Faye and we did not have to cook them that long. I'm telling you, yes, Instapot, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have an Instapot, and whenever I'm cooking, any type of grain or something like this, I'm usually walking around my kitchen, so I don't mind. I'm afraid of an Instapot, quite honestly. I feel like I would hit myself in the face. So I know, Robin. I know. I should. Maybe my birthday and anniversary are coming up, so maybe. I feel like whenever I cook beans from scratch, it comes out different every time. So please don't get frustrated. Know that you can cook them on the stovetop. So I have my chickpeas right here. They are going to go right into my food processor. Right, and they do triple in size when you soak them. So they start off dry. You can find them in bags where you do see all of the bagged beans. I got them on Amazon just because I needed a large quantity to get me through 4 recipes. Our freekeh is really cooking down. The water is becoming absorbed. I will be using a shallot as opposed to onions. This is what a whole shallot looks like. Shallots are not as pungent runaway shallot. I'm going to grab that so my dog does not run away with it. Shallots are in the onion family. Some people that think that it's a cross between onion and garlic, but they are, it's in the allium family, which is onion and garlic, but they're really a different type of onion, not as pungent, not as strong. So that's what I'm using. You, of course, could use onion. All right, I have some garlic here. And even though it's going into the food processor, I do cut them up a little bit. I do not have the most powerful food processor. Had it forever. That's probably something else I should ask for as a gift. So that's why I slice that up. For the spices, I have cumin and coriander. If you've never worked with these spices, I recommend going slow. Maybe just putting half of it in and give it a whirl and taste it, because we know we cannot take spices out once they've been mixed in, but you can always add. So some salt here. I have some cayenne. You don't have to use it if you are not a fan of heat, but we're really not using that much of it. using some baking powder to help it leaven a little bit once it's in the oven. And I'm using, here we go, cilantro. Okay, so I know I've told this story before. This is where it gets food sciencey. Some people think that cilantro tastes like soap, and it does for some people because there is in our body, it's called a soapy aldehyde. For those of us who do not mind cilantro, we have the enzyme to break down that soapy aldehyde. If you don't have that enzyme, forgive me for saying this, they consider it a mutation. You're not weird or anything, but they consider it a mutation because it's a soapy aldehyde. It really does taste like soap to you. So you could put in parsley, or you can leave it out completely, but I do like the freshness of an herb. Perhaps you can put basil in there and include the stems.
I love that you are using the stems, Michele, because I do that all the time. And I just have now my niece is here, and she's from Colombia, and she said that they actually use the stems to make a tea, and then they drink that tea to help you sleep at night. I'm like,
Wow.
what? I am going to do that. Like, I've
Yeah,
never heard it before. It's a very soothing. So she was cutting all my cilantro for dinner, and she pulled the stems and put them aside. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, oh yeah, I'll make a tea. It really is good for sleep, a sleep aid. So a little tip about that. I had no idea.
there you go. I've never heard of that.
Nope.
And this is, so I was just using a microplane. This is a great tool to have to zest citrus, turmeric, garlic, ginger. I just got a new one, so it's like fantastic. It works so well. You do not have to use your micro, you just want the top of the lemon so you get those beautiful fragrant oils. If you go down too far to the pith, that's when it becomes a little bitter.
Now, Michele, we have one question from Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Nice to have you today. I don't know if you answered this, but does soaking beans lose their nutrients? Did you see that one?
So soaking beans, no. But anytime you apply heat to anything, you are going to lose some nutrients, but not a lot. So that's a great question. And also, whenever I work with herbs and spices, it always brings to mind when you go to in your, if you have the Cancer Fighting Kitchen Cookbook, page 29 has an 8-page index of all different types of herbs and spices and what they're good for. So I like to use that as an idea of how I can use my herbs and spices. So I'm going to now puree this.
So, Michele, I thought that the purpose of soaking beans was so that you don't have as much gas when you eat them.
Yes. So what you want to do, absolutely. So it sounds counterintuitive. Well, to me anyway, you would think that the dried beans and then soaking them and cook, you would still have all that phytic acid, which can sometimes upset our stomachs. But actually the canned beans are not soaked. They're just dry beans, and the process makes them soft. For dried beans, what I would recommend is constantly changing the water, because that phytic acid leaches out into the water. So then you can dump the water, put fresh water, but you're not cooking with it anyway, but it just helps to get rid of it so it doesn't stick to the bean. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Betty. All right. So for the falafel, you kind of want to keep an eye on it and how it's processing, because you will need to be making patties. So you want to make sure that you're able to stick it and it stays intact. Now, You can also add an egg or an egg substitute if you feel like it's just too crumbly and it's not sticking together. Sue, do you want to talk about where you can find the book, like on Amazon, or I'm sure we have it on?
You should have that in your care box. So if you were a part of our community that got a care box, it's the Cancer Fighting Kitchen Cookbook, Leonore. And that is what the book that she's talking about. If you did not get the care box and you're joining us, then let me send you the link that's at Amazon. And I think on Amazon there, it's about $13.99. I think it's a $30 book, but it's about $13.99 on Amazon. But you can get it there. So let me send you the link. It's the Cancer Fighting Kitchen Cookbook. That book I actually used when I was sick. I loved that book. And 20 years ago, it was called One Bite at a Time. And then she actually republished the book. But the herbs and the spices, you know, that was our medicine cabinet of years past. So the fact that you use all those herbs and spices in a medicinal way, in a healing way, in a nutrient density way, wherever you can add herbs and spices in your food, go to it, because there's so many healing properties there. So let me send that over. And then Leonora, did you get the care box? Do you have our care box?
No.
Okay, I'm going to send it over to you.
Michelle, I have
Thank
another.
you.
Michelle, I have
Sorry.
another question. I invited my sister to join us for lunch today, and she doesn't like things really spicy or with the parsley in it. So I was going to like make these and take some of it off before I added the seasoning and the parsley to it. Is that what you would suggest?
Yeah, they'll still stick together. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Eliminating the herbs and spices, they're really just for taste. It's not really used as a binder. But these really, so obviously I'm making these into little patties. When you're baking, it's probably easier to make them into patties. You will see them if you're frying them involved. So I have the oven preheating to 400. Excuse me. So as I start dropping things on the floor, that's when Bella appears. All right, so so I have some parchment paper down. In order to help them crisp up, we're going to put some olive oil on here, okay? So I just put a little drizzle and brush it on here so it's fully on top. Turn it over. The recipe says you'll get like 12 to 15. And of course that matters. That's all dependent on how large you're making them. I always say that, you know, it's like meatballs. You're like, I'm going to start and make cute little meatballs. And by the end, they're like the size of softballs. So, right, I left my baking stone in there. It's in a safe place. All right, I'm going to start off with 7 minutes. Everyone's ovens are different. There we go. Obviously, I'm not going to make all of these patties. We would be here till 2 o'clock. So I will finish that after class. Going to clean up a little bit. And we're going to go back to the Lebanese Freekeh with chicken. So that Freekeh is done. Don't be afraid to cook grains. If all of the water has absorbed and the Freekeh or the grain is still firm, add more water. If it's too watery, but your Freekeh is done, drain the water. I think some of us shy away from cooking grains because we just don't feel successful, like me with the beans. But there's always a way. All right, so my Freekeh is done. I'm going to put that aside. Here I have my saute pan. I'm going to add a little bit of water, oil. And before class, I pan fried, just in a little bit of oil, some slivered almonds. So I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to start cooking our chicken. Now with the chicken, we just want to keep flipping it, right? You cannot touch it. You cannot touch it. Let it go. I will do it for 7 minutes also, or 5 minutes. So I'll go along with the falafel. Those are big chicken breasts, that's for sure. All right, so I am going to make the sauce for the falafel. Okay. So the first step, I'm just using plain Greek yogurt. You don't want to get the sweetened kind, right?
The box.
All right. Next, I will add, so cheating a little bit, not cheating, but I prefer sunflower spread as opposed to tahini, which is made from sesame seeds. So either one will work well. I find that I get through sunflower spread quicker than I do tahini. Can you use Absolutely. No, it will not. That's a great question. So you can use non-fat, 2%, 4%, even 5%, because you're really not using that much of it. You're really using it as a dollop. So don't be too concerned about the fat. All right. So I will be adding some water, lemon juice. So this is the lemon that I used to zest.
I think you're right.
I like to juice my lemon fresh, but again, as I always say, you can use bottled lemon juice. That will work well. One thing I want to mention with the chicken, so once I turn it, you should always make sure that your chicken cooks to 165. A lot of our other types of meats, you don't have to cook it to that temperature, but chicken needs to be cooked to 165. Very, very important. I just added some garlic. Here's some cumin, salt, and pepper.
So I don't like a lot of salt and things, so I made my own tahini with some sesame seeds, and now I'm trying to remember what I added to them. I added a little bit of pepper, and some oil, and then it was very thick, and so I added a little bit of water to it to thin it out and make it more like a sauce.
Yeah, yes, that's great. First of all, I love when you experiment with your food. Recipes are guides. Some of us have to follow them religiously, but then some of us can, play with it a little bit. And I do, yes, the first time I ever made this, it was very thick, which is fine, but the water really thins it out. So it's more of like a drizzle. All right, so that's the tahini sauce. I'm going to put this aside for when our falafel is done. The last recipe is super quick. It is an Israeli salad. So I hope who's ever cooking along, hope you're ready for the last recipe. I know I'm jumping around a lot.
I made my Israeli salad yesterday.
Say that again.
She
I
made
made the Israeli salad yesterday because you recommended that it sit out for an hour before eating it. So I figured that way it would be all made and it's been sitting out.
Yeah, it's one of those things that tastes better the next day. So if you're making it that day, just pop it in the refrigerator. So I'm adding my greens to the freekeh, and they will wilt. You don't have to cook it with the freekeh. You just put it in and they will wilt. And it adds beautiful color because, you know, freekeh's brown. So let's jazz it up a little bit.
So Michelle, you add a little olive oil on top of those and put them back in the oven to crisp them up.
I did. So I did it on the first side, and then once I flipped them, I did it on that side as well. Put a little bit of olive oil, brushed it around. Also, oh, beautiful. Those are great. So this is where I'm going to insert my thermometer. I have one of the digital ones. You can buy even at the grocery store, the one that you just put in the side that's not digital, so more of like a manual one. You want to put the probe into the thickest part of the chicken and go in from the side. You never want to go on top because most likely you're hitting the bottom of the pan and it's going to say your chicken is ready.
Another lesson I'm learning, Michelle.
I'm sorry.
Another lesson I'm learning. Go from the side. I go from the top. I go from the top.
This actually won't take too much longer. It was at 150. So once it pops up, I'm going to take it off, let it rest a little bit. So let's move on to the last recipe. So Israeli salad. A quick story about this bowl. So this is my great grandmother's bowl. It is really heavy. She was from Italy and my mom gave it to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have this really old bowl from Italy. And I turned it over and it says Bedford, Ohio. But it does say 1935. So it is 89 years old. But I was kind of sad it was from Ohio.
That just takes all the fun out of it, doesn't it? I think you need to scratch that off. live in the it's your grandmom's from Italy moment.
Makes for a better story. And okay. All right, I'm at 165. So I will take that off heat. We're wrapping up, everybody. We're almost there.
Yeah, no rush. You're doing great.
Michelle, I have one question. My
1 second. This is
My
crying so loud I can't hear. Hold up 1 second. There we go.
okay,
Now I can hear.
my falafel balls aren't sticking together. Add a little more oil to them.
If they are not binding, is that what you meant?
Yes.
I recommend adding a little bit of an egg or an egg substitute.
Okay.
Truthfully, full disclosure, mine do sometimes crumble. The one did crumble, the one did not. So I am going to make this because this is done. All right, so here is the falafel. Just drizzle a little bit of the garlic tahini sauce, garlic sunflower sauce for me. And you can put it on top of greens. You can add maybe some pickled onions on top. This is a great, great lunch or even dinner that has a lot of protein and fiber, plant protein, which we encourage as well. Animal protein, completely fine, but as we try to get more plants into our diet, chickpeas are a great way. So I hope you like the way that looks. It's very tasty, full of flavor.
Incredible.
All right.
I also love that our members, we had a couple of members said that they ended up cooking ahead of time, paying attention to your directions, Michele, so that they were all ready for the night before, so they were ready for today.
That's great. That's great. Makes it easier.
Great.
Makes it easier. All right. So the main ingredients, diced cucumbers, diced tomatoes. They're going to go right into my bowl from Ohio. That's okay. But I also wanted to show how I dice the cucumber. So I cut the ends off. I
Leonor,
slice it in half.
so delicious. It does. Those colors look so beautiful, Michele.
Right.
Yes, that's like a painting. It's beautiful.
So you can peel the cucumbers if you want. I typically do peel cucumbers, but I'm not for this dish because it just adds more color. That's where most of the fiber is. Cucumbers have a lot of water, so it's good for hydration. If you're not a fan of the seeds, take a little spoon and you can scrape out the seeds and go from there. All right, so I cut the ends off. I sliced it in half. And then I sliced it 4 times. You might be able to get away with, or you might only be able to do 3 slices. And so if you don't feel like dicing a pound of cucumbers, totally fine. You don't have to. And here, these are Campari tomatoes. Any type of tomato. You can even use grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes. I do scrape the seeds out of this. To me, it gets a little too watery, but that's just a personal preference. So I scrape the seeds out. my husband, after this is done, all of the juice or the dressing at the bottom, he'll get a piece of bread, like a true Italian, and dip it in. So for this, I just make slices. So this needs to be diced as well. And that goes right in. So if you recall earlier in the hour, I cut up some onions. They'll go right in. And now my parsley, I'll give this a rough chop with the stems as we were talking about. So nothing fancy, just a rough chop. I like the larger leaves, but you can even mince this. But this salad is so beautiful, so beautiful. All right, let's get to mixing this. So we're going to add some olive oil, some lemon juice. I think lemon juice, even plain without olive oil, you can get away with that on top of a salad. A little bit of salt. And that's it. How easy is this salad?
Beautiful.
So again, yeah, right? So again, this is our Israeli salad. There you go.
Love it.
I will probably have this for lunch in the office this week.
Yay. I'm in on Tuesday. Woohoo. Lucky me.
Okay.
I tend to make my days that I'm in the office around my nutrition team nowadays because they bring in such incredible food. I'm like, yeah, I'll come.
We bring food, that's for sure.
Oh, it's so fun.
That's for sure. All right, last but not least, these are very large pieces of chicken, like I keep saying. So
Sure.
can you see the dog? Like she's ready to go.
Ready.
So because of the spices, it really browns up nicely. Carving knife, I like to cut it into slices to lay on top instead of just putting that whole piece of chicken on top. I know. Maybe afterwards, okay?
Tell me her or his name again.
This is Bella.
Bella. How did I? Of course.
Of course. Our cat's name is Francesco. We have a Luca. My husband is Antonio. My son is Paolo. And then you have me, Michele. I don't fit in.
Is the Luca because it's from Luca? The
Oh,
city?
that's right, Stu. Yeah.
I am all about it now. You know, I caught that bug.
Oh gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
The cat before, his name was Carmelo, and the funny thing, my name Michele is spelt with one L. Well, in Italian, that's Michele, which is Michael. So I have the right name, clearly. Okay, so we have those. Where did that run off to? Here we go. So we're going to top it with the toasted almonds, top it with some parsley, and you can lay it on top, you can lay it on the side.
So beautiful.
There you go. Oops, there we go. Someone just came home from this Frisbee game asking what's for lunch. Yes, this is my lunch.
It's
And
amazing.
you can serve the Israeli salad on the side.
Yeah.
It's a nice little meal.
I love
So
I just went over to Amazon and I ordered my Freekeh. I'm ready to go.
it's great. And that's one of the things I find most when I'm speaking with our members is grains. You know, grains, we think of brown rice or quinoa, but there's such a whole world out there. Amaranth, quinoa, bulgur, barley, so many different types of grains out there. And we'd be happy to talk to you about all of the grains. So here are the dishes. Again, hopefully you can see that with all the mess over there. But so there you go, Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. In an hour, you will see that email with the links for the recipes. Erin's link, please join her class. She has some great recipes as well. Thank you, Sue, for joining us today. I hope everyone has a great rest of the weekend. If you make these recipes, please show us pictures, especially with your beautiful faces, if you're comfortable. Our communication team loves pictures and testimonials and all that good stuff. So, and if you've made any changes, like Faye talked about the based on this cuisine. I missed that, Sue. Did it say based on?
You're going to continue to do more of this type of cuisine. It was her first class and she loved it. So Robin, thank you for cooking along and all the feedback. And I hope your husband loves his lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we
Absolutely.
have Joanne saying she's going out to our garden. She's going to pick her cucumbers and her onions and her tomatoes right now.
Oh.
And everybody's loving your class. They're all loving your class. Such a good class, Michele. Fantastic. You have such knowledge. And I am just always blown away when I get to join my registered dietitian team with all the knowledge that you guys have and deliver. I agree. It is better than the actual American Test Kitchen.
Absolutely, a little bit of cultural flair, which is always fun. So, yeah. So again, if you have any questions, let us know. If you've made any changes to these dishes, that's always fun because this is my first class. When I do my next 3 classes, which the recipes are the same, I could say, oh, well, one of our members did this instead. So it just gives us more content to pass along. So.